Our next speaker is Sarah Agar. Sarah is the Policy and Campaigns Advisor with Choice, and Sarah will speak about investor rights to sue governments and the threat to food labelling and other public interest regulation.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Leslie says, my name is Sarah Agar, and I've been running Choice's campaign on the Trans-Pacific Partnership for the last 2 years. Choice is Australia's largest and oldest consumer advocacy body. We're an independent not-for-profit and we're entirely member-funded. We first became interested in the Trans-Pacific Partnership several years ago when some leaked documents indicated that this secretive trade agreement might have wide-ranging negative impacts on Australian consumers. The particular impact that I'm going to talk about today is the way the TPP might interact with our food labelling laws, and in particular with country of origin labelling. When I was studying law at university, like a lot of students, I took a part-time job at a supermarket. I worked behind the deli counter, and being very accessible to shoppers, I had a lot of people ask me questions about the products in the store. Being a keen law student and budding consumer advocate, I took a lot of pleasure in telling people the finer points of how to seek a refund if they weren't happy with the products they were buying, much to my manager's irritation. But despite being really engaged with consumer protection law and studying misleading advertising and labelling, there was one question that I really struggled to answer, and it was the question that was asked the most frequently, and that was, where does this product come from? Now, with labels like the one on the screen, it's no wonder shoppers were confused. For those of you who can't see that, it's a label on the back of a jar of honey, and it reads country of origin, South Africa, and or Argentina, and or Australia, and or China, and or Zambia. So not particularly clear. Now, this is an example I took from the internet, but I have seen labels just like this in Australian stores. And our framework legally for country of origin labelling is really confusing. You might see labels like made in Australia, product of Australia, made in Australia with imported ingredients, and it's really genuinely confusing and difficult for consumers to figure out what the difference is between those categories. And they have a pretty simple question, is this product Australian, and if not, where is it from? So this matters because a lot of Australians care about the food that we eat. At Choice, I see that evidence through the tens of thousands of people who sign up for our Better Food Labelling campaigns. We have access to some really excellent local produce in this country, but when supermarket labels are confusing or hard to understand, it makes it really difficult for consumers to exert their power in the supermarket to pay money for the things that they value. So this is why Choice has been campaigning for clear and easy to understand country of origin labels for some years now. And it's why we were really pleased to see that the government has committed to new and improved country of origin labelling to be rolled out in July of this year. Now you can see on the screen, at a glance, these labels are much clearer. They let consumers see whether or not they're buying an Australian product and how Australian it is. But that doesn't mean we've won country of origin labelling and can go home and I can quit my job and never work on it again. I suspect there are people in this room who are looking at that image and have some constructive criticism already. I can think of several ways that this scheme could be improved. Choice research has shown that the number one question people ask is, if a product isn't Australian, then where is it from? People want to know where the main ingredient is sourced. So if you go into the shop and buy a bottle of orange juice and it says made in Australia from 0% Australian ingredients, the natural question is, where were the oranges grown? So ideally, we want to be able to keep improving our country of origin labelling system. It's taken us several years to get to this point, and we want to keep improving it in the future. Law reform is an ongoing process. You shouldn't just stop when it's close to good enough. You need to keep on improving our laws as we discover new ways of presenting information that helps consumers. And this is where the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement becomes relevant. Now, this is an image that I saw shared on Facebook earlier this week. Unfortunately, it wasn't sourced. If anyone knows where it's from, I would love to know who created it. But for those who can't quite see that image, it sums up the TPP as being about corporations pushing to make a law, to make it against the law, to make a law against them. So this is the way that the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement might impact on our ability to further improve systems like our country of origin labelling system. The image is referring to the investor-state dispute settlement clauses that some of the other speakers have mentioned today. These are the clauses that could threaten our ability to change laws that help and protect consumers, like our country of origin labelling laws. If the TPP goes through with investor-state dispute settlement, or ISDS, then in the future, if we try to change our laws, an international corporation could launch an objection to that change in an international court of arbitration, just because they don't want to provide clearer information to consumers. So ISDS in the TPP does pose a significant risk to our ability to pass consumer protection laws in the future. But we can still do something to stop this. As has been mentioned by Pat, the TPP has been signed, but that doesn't mean it's all over. TPP legislation implementing the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement has yet to be introduced into Parliament. Choice is currently calling on politicians to block this implementing legislation when it does come through, unless the government agrees to commit to addressing the threat of ISDS. They can do this by negotiating with individual parties to the agreement to opt out of ISDS clauses. This wouldn't mean that there would need to be a whole new negotiation process with all of the parties. It would just be about going to individual nations' representatives and saying, we both agree to opt out of ISDS and not use it against each other. Now, this is a really realistic option because the Australian government has actually already done this with one party to the TPP, and that is New Zealand. We have a side letter agreement that states that New Zealand and Australia will not be using investor-state dispute settlement, even though it remains in the body of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. And if there's no justification for including investor-state dispute settlement with New Zealand, it does raise the question of what possible justification can we have for retaining ISDS with the United States, a country that, like New Zealand, has a similar legal system and similar legal traditions to Australia, but unlike New Zealand, has a reputation for having some of the most litigious major corporations in the world and a general cultural readiness to sue. It is urgent that we make our opposition to a TPP that includes ISDS clear now. As people who care about the food we eat and who want clear and honest labels and who want to protect the right of our Parliament to release and develop laws that are in the public interest that benefit everyone, then we cannot accept a TPP that includes investor-state dispute settlement. I encourage you to join the campaign at choice... Oh, I've lost the mouse, sorry. Well, the next slide is just my website. It's choice.com.au/TPP. And I'd also encourage you to join the other campaigns that are being run by other organisations who are concerned about the TPP, like AFTINET's campaign and those of various organisations. We have a really broad coalition of people who are concerned about the Trans-Pacific Partnership for a range of reasons. And that's evidenced by the different speakers that we have here today, and also the various bodies that have come out with criticisms against the TPP publicly. For instance, we've had the Chief Justice of Australia's High Court make some criticisms about the inherent tensions between the ISDS arbitration system and the legitimate functioning of our government and Parliament. The Productivity Commission, a generally fairly conservative body, has also recommended that Australia avoid entering into trade agreements that contain investor-state dispute settlement. So to sum up, there is a sensible option for dealing with investor-state dispute settlement, and it's up to us to make it clear that anything less from the government is unacceptable. Thank you.
If a form of attack could perhaps be, this is a question, to hone in on the absolute impossibility of the governance involved in checking all the labelling, whatever, and actual spot content of products that would be coming into the country through the TPP.
I would be wary of pushing that only because Choice does a lot of work in product safety, and we are calling for more inspection of products as they come in. So I wouldn't want to suggest that it's impossible to have governance around safe products. In terms of checking products as they come in and the links to the TPP, I think our most strategic call is still around food labelling and investor-state dispute settlement, and going beyond country of origin labelling. It's things like palm oil labelling that we're also concerned about, and then broader any further consumer protection laws that may be implemented. If they can be challenged under ISDS, then we would have an issue with that. So to sort of flip your suggestion, if we wanted to increase inspection of goods as they came into the country to prevent things like the Samsung washing machine fires, if anyone's not aware of that, please check your Samsung washing machine. There's a recall on at the moment. If we wanted to strengthen those systems,